Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm going to talk about a topic today that is very dear to my heart, and it is emotional maturity. It came to me and has been brewing for a couple of weeks. The timing is right now to talk about it. It's something that every sentient being on this planet is familiar with. It has to do with feeling emotions, feeling deeply as a human being and allowing ourselves to feel deeply and understanding why it is so important for our evolution as human beings, individually, and also as a collective. And as you probably have recognized, we're living in a time of great turmoil and chaos and challenges on many, many levels. And in my work with human liberation, I have talked a lot about the ascension process. And for many, these words and these concepts are difficult to grasp because I'm talking about topics that are a little bit further on the journey. So I'm going to try today and use very simple language that everyone can understand, and also try to put it in a bigger perspective so that we understand why this is so important and how this has to be the first step for us to be able to master our lives as human beings in the best possible way, with ease and grace. Whatever comes to us, whatever arises in our lives, we will be able to handle and hold space for. So that brings me into what this is. So in our society and in our upbringing, we have not been taught or been practicing what it is to handle and hold space for emotional aspects of ourselves. And in my earlier years, I was very angry and bitter, and I thought it was really difficult to live in a society where emotions are not valued or even allowed sometimes. But then eventually I learned why we as a society have been steered away from our emotions. That is not a topic for this conversation today, but it's something that I think every human that is on the ascension path, which only means anyone who is not resisting what is actually going on right now inside of your body, opening up our eyes to truth, to who we really are, to how these systems and the structures that we're living in right now, how they are built and why they are built this way. All of these aspects of life will come to the surface and are already very much in the present world, on the world scene right now, for those willing to see and hear. So why I wanted to talk about this specific topic today is because this is the first level of initiations and rites of passage that we go through when we step onto our journey of really getting to know ourselves. And that is to know ourselves through our emotions. The thing that we have been steered away from is that emotions are actually our inner map to understand everything. And instead of actually valuing and really honoring our emotions, we have been taught to ridicule them. And yeah, they are not a part of our society in a way that they should be. So getting past that system, getting past that belief system that our emotions are just something fluffy for very feminine women who are very sensitive, empathic, and who are too sensitive, one might think. I've heard that my whole life, that I'm very sensitive. But there's a difference between being sensitive and being emotionally mature. Emotional maturity has to do with being able to hold space, being able to tune into different atmospheres, different sensations, different people, different situations that we come into. And it's the best gift humanity has ever been given, because it gives us the opportunity to feel truth. And you will experience along this path that you can only get so far by using your left brain, your mind. And I did that for a long time when I tried to put my emotions aside and only use my brain. And it worked at full capacity for many, many years, but it only got me so far. And when I had suppressed my emotions and my intuition long enough, it was time to, my body was actually telling me that, okay, now it's time to switch. We put the heart in the driver's seat. So moving your consciousness, your trust, your everything from the mind to the heart is probably the hardest thing we will ever do, because it goes against everything that we have learned, everything that we have experienced. We think that all the success in our lives is because of planning, organizing, using our brains. When actually, if you think about it, the best things in our lives was orchestrated by the heart, by the intuition, by allowing ourselves to flow towards what feels right. But getting to that space where you actually can trust that the heart will have your back every time, that took years for me. It's still a very challenging process sometimes. So what I will say is, mastering our emotions starts with actually allowing ourselves to feel. At this point, a lot of people have just locked down their whole emotional center. Because just as giving birth, the body goes through very, very painful emotions. But for anyone who has given birth, they know that if you resist what's going on, the experience will be so much worse. And it's the same with any emotion. If you do not allow your body to feel, if you do not allow emotions to rise to the surface, it will feel so much worse. And the emotions will be even reinforced by not allowing them to be felt and seen. So, as with birth, when you learn to breathe through all the feelings that go through your body, you hold space for something to just be felt. And through that practice, one learns to master emotions. so that they are not so unendurable. It's like the consciousness is just observing the emotions going through the body, the pain, the contractions, the fear. You just observe everything happening in your body while you're in labor. And it's the same with emotions that come from anything in life, from relationship issues to insecurity about financial situations, being afraid of heights, being afraid of speaking in public places, holding ourselves back because we're afraid to be judged, not being liked, not being part of a community. If we just allow ourselves to really feel these things and allow all of it to come to the surface, to be seen and felt, and not do anything in the first place, the only practice is to just sit with it, allow it to flow through your body. And if you just give it the time that it needs, it will eventually reduce itself in intensity, or you will up-level your endurance, that you can endure the pain, endure the fear. You're able to hold space for it to just be. Because many people seem to feel that or think that emotions are something scary. They will never kill you. What will kill you, metaphorically speaking, is when you suppress them, and they are not gone. They're just subconscious. So they're still in the driving seat. It's just that you have no control over them. You have no relationship with them. So they're still pretty much directing your life, controlling your life, but you're just not conscious of it. And the worst part is actually that when we have suppressed our emotions, they somehow seem to grow a lot stronger. So very often they add on. The snowball effect is just the seed of the original emotion has just grown bigger and bigger and bigger without us knowing what is actually the core issue. And sometimes then it can just manifest in our lives as something very, very huge, something that feels unsurmountable to deal with. But if we break it apart, every emotion, just like notes on a piano, all emotions have a specific frequency. And if we just divide them into their pure essence, it's easier to deal with. So my suggestion is, number one, never fear your emotions. The emotions are what you have been given. Your innate ability to feel is something that every sentient being on this planet have been given as a tool to navigate in this life, in this third dimensional matrix, in this polarity game. That's what you've been given to navigate. So instead of belief systems taught through our society holding us back and distracting us from actually using something that we have within, it's free, it's always present. You can decide to use it in any moment, even if you've never used it your whole life. Then you just might need some guidance from someone who can teach you how to feel and how to master your emotions. And then you have this tool with you all the time to help you navigate in this life. So let us just talk a little bit about what happens when we are emotionally immature. So emotional immaturity is what happens when we as children miss the stages where we are supposed to learn how to master our emotions. Every little child has a lot of emotions, and at some points on that journey, you either have surroundings, meaning parents, teachers, relatives, friends, that hold space for you so that you can explore those emotions and so that you can learn that emotions are okay. Or you have surroundings that make you feel ashamed, guilty, different. There's a car coming. I just want to stop so the sound is okay. So either you understand it within yourself as a child that I'm allowed to feel, but not many children have that ability. So we have a situation now where we have a lot of grown-ups who we expect shall behave as grown-ups. But the thing is that a lot of them lack these very necessary developmental stages in their childhood that would secure this level of maturity that they would need as grown-ups, as being whole, as being fully functional grown-ups, adults. So let us just look a little bit closer on how a child reacts when something goes wrong. So there will be anger, and this anger sometimes have very uncomplimentary expressions, like they would throw things or hit someone or be, they don't know where to put their emotions and how to get them out in a satisfactory way. And in the same way, you have these more subtle emotions that a child will be very intuitive and sensitive, and they will try them out and see how the surroundings will respond to them. And very often then, when the surroundings cannot hold space for those emotions either, the child learns to suppress. The child learns that it's best it observes the reactions from the immediate surroundings, from the people around, and they learn through this observation what is best for them, what will give them the best feeling about themselves. So let's just say that we have a child whose primary defense mechanisms, this is the term used in psychology, primary defense mechanisms, and then you have secondary. There are different levels of what kind of defense mechanisms a human being uses when dealing with challenges or emotions that are difficult to handle. So a child who has not learned how to channel, navigate the emotional inner map, they will very often use denial. There's a new car coming. Just a second. Okay, we're back. So yeah, there will be denial. There will be blame shifting, trying to blame someone else. And there will be something called deflection, trying to talk about something else, deflecting it. When someone asks you something, you just try to change the subject, or you just talk about something else, and There's also procrastination. There's many different expressions of these ways of avoiding. So yeah, that's also one, avoidance. You try to avoid any situation that will put you in a very difficult spot, because then you don't have the tools to handle the emotions that come up. And that is the way the ego helps you, like helps you. It's the ego's way of helping you to avoid difficult emotions. So obviously, when we go through life, we eventually get some insight and we learn how to master our emotions better in a more healthy way. But this is not always the case. There are many adults out there today that still inhibit these. They have these ways of dealing with difficult emotions still. So you will meet people that at any cost will try to avoid feeling these emotions, because that's a threat to their ego. That's a threat to their identity. And it's a threat that is calling them to look at themselves and take responsibility, to be accountable for their actions, and to stand in their integrity. And all of these things is impossible for someone who has not learned, who has not been taught, who has not practiced how to hold space for your own emotional landscape inside. And obviously, human beings that do not have these abilities to hold space for their own emotions, they have no other choice but to project them out on the outside world. So that's what they do. And so at the same time as you're inflicting harm on yourself, you're inflicting much harm on your surroundings and the people around you. And this is not often a conscious process even. It's just something that you instinctively choose, because the other option is just not an option. It's not an option to seriously look within to find the answers, or to be responsible for your actions and behavior and your words and how you show up in this world. So this is the problem that we have right now in this world. So many people who are immature in the way to deal with life, with emotions, with thought forms, because, well, today I talk about emotions, but they are very closely related and entangled with thought patterns and belief systems. So as children, instead of being told that our emotions are a gift to navigate in this life, we are shamed and shunned and made feeling guilty about things. And even when the emotions are really difficult for surroundings to handle, like strong anger or self-hate. I mean, there are so many children that struggle right now with very, very deep, difficult emotions connected to self-worth and self-love. And if we don't teach our children that feeling whatever you feel is allowed, it's honored, it's appreciated, it's something that we desperately need in this world, for them to know that it's safe to feel, it's safe to express yourself without being judged. These are the humans that will develop into unstable, ticking bombs because they haven't experienced being in that safe space inside and knowing that this is a learning process. if we allowed ourselves, every little child would go through all of those developmental stages and actually master them as they come. And instead, we encourage them to think about something else, or not worry about that, or not being present with whatever arises. And we do not understand the consequences of that before we can see the results when they are older and when they grow up and become adults that are emotionally immature and unable to handle situations that requires reflection, presence, responsibility, integrity, even knowing what those words mean, holding each other accountable for being kind, being compassionate, and loving each other. This is something that starts from the day we are born. And of course, there's a huge job for grown-ups and adults, youth, teenagers that have missed these stages and who do not feel safe, to be present with their emotions and knowing how to handle them. And not only handling them, that sounds negative, I mean mastering them and actually feeling what a gift they are, feeling how they can be our number one guide to both happiness and success, and actually mastering this beautiful experience called life. So we have to start with the children, making sure that they are offered this beautiful safe space to express themselves and to be guided when they are confused and frustrated and scared. And obviously, who are supposed to guide them if the grown-ups do not have these abilities themselves? Well, to be honest, I would say let the children guide you. If you feel that you have children that are able to feel their emotions and express them, use them as your guide and seek guidance from people that know about these things. Handling our emotions is number one. Number one to being a whole, grounded, aligned human being, a mature human being. And from there, beautiful things open up when we don't resist what is our innate gift. Beautiful things will come from that. Let's look at the view here as finishing off. And I love you all. And may we be able to be present with our emotions in the time ahead.